Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Llamas. We will have the latest on the historic indictment of former President Donald Trump straight ahead. But we begin first with that dangerous tornado emergency in the south. A massive tornado carving a destructive path across Little Rock, Arkansas late this afternoon. You can see it cutting across the densely populated areas. This cell phone video giving a glimpse of the twister's speed. Residents frantically rushing to try and find shelter. Multiple injuries reported. Pulaski County's Office of Emergency Management reporting at least one death. Drone footage revealing the extent of the devastation. Roofs torn off homes, trees ripped out of the ground, debris scattered as far as the eye can see. Businesses gutted by the force of those powerful winds, insulation hanging from what's left of the ceiling. Outside of a grocery store, cars and shopping carts flipped on their sides. Severe weather alerts still in effect across much of the South and Midwest. Bill Cairns is standing by to time out the dangerous night ahead. But first, Emily Aqueda. She was in Little Rock as that tornado touched down and leads us off with those terrifying moments.
Go, 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 go!
Life-threatening danger in the heart of Arkansas.
This is not a possible tornado. This is a tornado in progress.
A confirmed tornado touching down around Little Rock. Cars and trucks flipped and storefronts ripped apart.
Scariest thing I've ever been in. Sheets of rain and then the trees like toys being picked up.
Residents frantically trying to find safe shelter.
Made it into one of the little salons over here, got in, and as I got in, huddled up against the cement barrier, every single glass window blew out and people were blown back. And I held on, and it must have been a minute just huddled. I thought I was a goner for sure.
For your safety, please remain calm.
Our crew having to race to the basement of this hotel as the fast-moving storm closed in. This is the reality for residents across Arkansas, hunkering down and taking cover as life-threatening storms and tornadoes begin to barrel through. The storm system, one of several spread across the Mississippi Valley and Midwest. 58 million people facing a tornado threat, along with thunderstorms, hail, and powerful winds. Damage is already being reported. Nearly 70,000 without power in Arkansas alone. Officials in Little Rock urging people to stay inside their homes so emergency crews can get close to those who need help. One of Little Rock's major hospitals at a level 1 operation, expecting nearly 20 patients, their conditions unknown.
A lot of damage, a lot of trees down and damage to structures. So it's a pretty serious situation.
The state capitol and surrounding areas now reeling from this raging storm.
Emily Aqueda joins us now from Little Rock, Arkansas. Emily, we are so glad you and your team are safe. You were sheltering in place as this monstrous storm just slammed into the city. We can see behind you now, it still looks like storms are in the area as we speak. What was that moment like earlier today, and what are you seeing right now?
Well, Ellison, we essentially heard a series of different kinds of alarms. First, the area's tornado sirens went off, blaring throughout the afternoon. We also got those alerts on our phones. And then folks came over the hotel's intercom system, escorting people and ushering them into this underground, essentially tornado shelter beneath the hotel as we rode out some of the most severe portions of the storm. We actually saw a rotating formation of that storm just across the river there, which is the very storm that produced the confirmed tornado that has caused so much damage. Just more evidence of a monstrous storm, Ellison.
Emily, do we know how many people have been injured because of this afternoon's tornado?
Ellison, just in the last couple of minutes, we've actually confirmed with a pair of hospitals in the area that they are treating 21 patients. 5, we're told, are in critical condition. We've also heard from other authorities that there are reported injuries throughout the area. So we anticipate the number to rise, but it's difficult to put a number to it at this hour because we are still facing an active threat, as you can see, as these waves of storms still continue to barrel through. It's something that authorities are watching closely as they continue to assess and respond to damage and calls for help. Earlier today, I mentioned the on and off tornado sirens that we heard. Now the sirens that we're hearing are from police cars and ambulances, Ellison.
All right, Emily Aqueda, please stay safe. Thank you for your reporting. For more on this destructive system and where it's headed next, let's get right to NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, what's the latest?
We're very concerned with a few areas, and this will continue through the overnight hours. So in the last 15 minutes, this is Covington, Tennessee. They were just under a tornado emergency. Tornado emergencies are only issued when we know a large destructive tornado is heading for your town. Now, in the next half hour, we'll find out, did it hit the town? Did it go just south of town? But storm chasers have been watching this. This has been a long track tornado. It started in Arkansas. It's been on the ground for a long time now, and now it is just passing. So this is what we call a supercell thunderstorm, and we look for the hooks. And if you ever hear that term, that's this right here. That's the hook. This would be the tornado right here. So it just passed through Covington, or maybe if we're lucky, just on the south side of town. Again, we'll find out about destruction and damage in the next half hour or so. There's other areas of concern. Here's Springfield, Illinois. This doesn't have that classic hook shape to it, but this has had rotation with it, and there's a tornado warning just to the north. This will cross Interstate 55 here in about the next 20, 30 minutes. And then to the north, Iowa has had numerous tornado warnings in the last hour or two. You can actually see a spin right here. That's the actual center of the storm. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 separate tornado warnings on this line of thunderstorms. That includes Davenport. I hope everyone's in your shelters. The tornado sirens are going off right now, and also up towards Preston. Dubuque, you're seeing the thunderstorms go through, but you're not under a tornado warning. So we'll give you more updates on that. And as far as tornado watches, this new one for Nashville was just issued. This goes until 1 a.m. So long after people go to sleep, this threat continues, Allison. So again, tornadoes are on the ground now. They are doing damage and destruction. And I'll give you updates throughout this hour when we get new information in.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you for that. For more on what this devastation looks like on the ground, we're joined by someone who actually survived this tornado in Little Rock, Jason Robbins. Jason, first of all, we are so glad that you are safe. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us tonight. Can you just walk us through what you saw and what your experience has been like since then? I understand you were at work at the time this happened.
Yes, ma'am, I was. We saw a lot of debris going off, and I heard that it was really close to my house. So I went over to check on my son after everything kind of passed. And as I was making my way trying to get home to check on my son in my house, I couldn't get through, so I had to walk, where I came upon an apartment complex that was destroyed. So me and a handful of other guys, because the firemen and everyone else couldn't get to them, we kind of jumped in and we kind of helped. And I know we pulled 7 people out of the rubbish, all the debris. We all, I don't know, it was kind of nice seeing the community pull together during a time like this. And we were able to save a few people until everyone could get there. It was just kind of the community kind of standing up for each other, I guess, staying strong.
What sort of help do you and your neighbors need in the hours and the days ahead?
My neighborhood, actually, we were lucky. I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to need a lot more help. We're not really sure what's going on right now. We're all out of power. You know, we're lucky we have a generator, but I think it's going to take a lot for our community just to pull together, just to be strong and help each other out. And like I said, it was really good that we were able to step in and help out the police department and the fire department and get those folks out. And hopefully everybody's okay and everyone's accounted for. So,
yeah, those 7 people you helped rescue, do you know how they're doing tonight?
I don't know. As soon as I left there, and they had plenty of people to help, I just went over and kind of stood in and just helped as much as I could. And then I went and checked on my son and made sure everything was okay. And, you know, luckily we didn't lose everything. It was probably only, I don't know, maybe 50 meters from our house where everything got destroyed. And we just were one of the lucky ones that it just jumped over us.
Mm-hmm. Gosh. Well, thank you for sharing some of your story with us and giving us a little window into what it was like there. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just think we just, I don't know. It'll be good. We got a strong community, so hopefully we'll pull together and everything will be all right. So we'll get through it.
Thank you so much for being with us. We are glad you, your family, and those other people you helped get to safety are at least physically okay tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome. You have a great day.
Now to the other major headline, the latest surrounding the indictment of former President Donald Trump. Sources tell NBC News the former president is facing about 30 counts of document fraud related charges in New York. The exact charges Trump faces remain under seal, but they are expected to be revealed at his arraignment, possibly as soon as Tuesday. NBC senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake has more on the security preparations underway ahead of this historic prosecution.
Tonight, the NYPD preparing for Lower Manhattan to become the epicenter of an ongoing legal and political earthquake as the historic prosecution of former President Trump transitions to its next phase. Security tightening and officers told to be in uniform ahead of possible protests, though the mayor's office today saying there are no credible threats. The indictment of Mr. Trump is still secret and under seal, but sources familiar with its contents tell NBC News the former president will face some 30 document fraud-related charges when he's formally arraigned next week. The case developed by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg centers on payments allegedly orchestrated on behalf of Mr. Trump by former Trump fixer turned critic Michael Cohen in 2016, all to silence claims of an affair with Mr. Trump by adult film star Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump has long denied the affair, and hush money payments themselves are not illegal. The question is how the payment was accounted for, what could be a misdemeanor, or if he pursues a low-level felony, Bragg may try an unprecedented move, a state prosecutor charging an alleged federal election law violation.
This was a personal resolution for a personal matter that would have been made irrespective of the campaign. So with those facts together, there is no crime. There's not even a bad act.
Both federal prosecutors and Bragg's predecessor in the DA's office declined to pursue a case against Mr. Trump, which would have relied heavily on testimony from Cohen, who pleaded guilty to a federal campaign law violation related to the case and lying to Congress in a separate matter.
I am a convicted felon. I am a disbarred lawyer, but I also brought the documents. There's plenty of testimony, corroborating testimony to go around.
Mr. Trump's attorneys say he will surrender himself ahead of his expected arraignment Tuesday. He'll be fingerprinted and have his mugshot and DNA sample taken, though they say he will not be handcuffed. Then he'll appear before a judge. All of it while under the protection of his Secret Service detail in yet another historic first.
NBC senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake joins us now from Lower Manhattan. Garrett, do we know anything else in terms of the former president's travel plans ahead of the arraignment?
Well, said he is expected to travel into the city on Monday night, then make his court appearance on Tuesday after spending the night at Trump Tower. Exactly how he'll get in and out of the building and how the logistics will work while he's here remains something of a closely guarded secret, in part because of the unprecedented nature of what we're dealing with here with the Secret Service protectee going through this process. But Trump aides do tell me that as soon as it's over, he plans to return to Florida and Mar-a-Lago.
Garrett, we've also heard from a number of Republicans as well as Trump allies. Are we expecting to see them and others at protest on Tuesday?
Well, this is the second time Trump and his allies have attempted to organize protests down here around the idea of his arrest. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene has said she will come here for a protest in the park just behind our camera position. Other Republican lawmakers are expected to join her. Whether they're able to draw more than the few dozen people who appeared here a week and a half ago remains to be seen, Ellison.
For more on the indictment and what comes next for former President Trump, we are joined now by NBC legal analyst Danny Savalos. Danny, we heard in Garrett's piece there, and our thanks to Garrett Haake for all of his reporting on this, but we heard in his piece what NBC News sources are telling us about the possibility of charges, potentially 30 counts related to document fraud. What does that tell you, and what are you expecting?
Oh, the tea leaves. It could mean a number of different things. You could see a number of counts arising out of a single or a few transactions. And that's possible if you have, it won't be maybe 30 different events, but 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 events and a bunch of charges. They might seem a little duplicative, but they may be slightly different in terms of elements. But I'm still holding out the possibility that there could be charges related to New York state tax law, possibly inflating the value of his properties for loan purposes and then deflating them for tax benefits. Those seem to be a cleaner case. Certainly, there's plenty of reporting and potential argument. I mean, after all, this is a guy who supposedly said his residence was 30,000 square feet and it was nowhere near. That is an an unfudgeable number, in my view. So, I mean, there are a number of different possibilities. It may not just be Stormy Daniels. And in my opinion, if it is just Stormy Daniels and maybe some other hush money payments, that is problematic. And more, I'm starting to think that is all it is. That is going to be a challenge. I mean, Joe Tacopina told you why. I am a defense attorney. Take that with a grain of salt. I think it's going to be a challenge for a number of different reasons, not the least of which, as we've just heard, the New York State prosecutors, to me, it's an open question whether or not they can invoke a federal election law violation in order to boost this otherwise misdemeanor into felony land. Now, that may be a tricky issue that the legislature created in drafting the statute, but whatever the case may be, it's not a clear-cut situation, and you better believe the defense is going to move to throw out that felony if that's what it is.
Let's talk about the logistics here as someone who knows New York courts, the process very well. In terms of the arraignment, a Trump campaign aide confirming that he will travel to New York on Monday. He's going to stay at his Trump Tower apartment before being arraigned on Tuesday and then return back to Florida at some point on Tuesday night. At least that's what we are being told right now. What's going to happen in between that when Trump arrives for his arraignment and when he leaves court?
The bottom line is this. Take everything I may know about procedure from being in New York County at Supreme Court. And by the way, Supreme Court is the lowest trial court. It's very confusing in New York. Yeah. Supreme Court is the trial court. The highest court is the Court of Appeals. So he's going to be in Supreme Court. Take everything I know about that and anything everybody else knows about it and throw it out the window. And I have Exhibit A here. And Exhibit A is what I learned today, that apparently they're going to be shutting down almost the entire courthouse for a single arraignment. When else in human history has an entire courthouse been shut down for a single arraignment? Well, this is the reason to do it. My point in bringing this up is that procedure is now out the window. So when it comes to when will trial be, or how long will discovery be, or what will the next steps be, I can tell you maybe what would happen in the normal case. This is the least normal case in the history of cases. So we're all sort of guessing here when it comes to procedural questions like how soon, how long, when is trial?
We keep saying historic, unprecedented, because those are the words that apply here. That's a very good reminder. Let's talk about some of the other cases former President Trump is facing, because this is not the only criminal investigation into former President Donald Trump. It's one of at least 3. Is there a scenario where this case will have an impact on what happens in those others?
In my view, only psychologically. I don't think there's any significant overlap when it comes to the facts. Again, we're doing all this assuming we're talking about Stormy Daniels' hush money payments. But even if it was tax violations, other things related to his real estate, that really wouldn't spill into Jack Smith, the special counsel's investigation. And I can't imagine a world where it overlaps with Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA's investigation. So the only effect to me is probably psychological. It may be that these prosecutors have been doing all this work, say Fani Willis in Fulton County, Georgia, and she sees this come out, and in her mind, maybe subconsciously, is thinking, hey, you just snaked all my publicity here. I've been working on this. I sent it to a grand jury, got a report back. I'm going through all the steps, and then out comes this indictment of Trump. Whether they do it consciously or not, I wouldn't be surprised if you might see a couple more indictments coming now that the seal has been broken.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Danny Spallas, for your analysis and the reminder that a lot of this is just so unknown at this point. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Danny. All right, many now questioning where the indictment leaves Trump's 2024 presidential ambitions. Legally, this does not disqualify him from the race, but the question is, how will voters respond? NBC News just learning the former president raised more than $4 million in the 24 hours since the indictment. That is according to his campaign. Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander has more.
First, the historic indictment, now the political fallout. President Biden deliberately avoiding the topic.
I'm not going to talk about Trump's indictment.
But Republicans tonight are slamming it as a Democratic DA tried to take out President Biden's top political opponent with a bogus legal case. Like this reaction from former Trump Attorney General turned fierce Trump critic Bill Barr.
It's the archetypal abuse of the prosecutorial function to engage in a political hit job, and it's a disgrace.
Some of Mr. Trump's biggest defenders, those expected to challenge him for the GOP nomination.
The unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States on a campaign finance issue is outrageous.
Mr. Trump's top potential rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, blasted the indictment as un-American and vowed his state will not assist in the extradition, even though the former president plans to surrender voluntarily to New York authorities. Former President Trump, his lawyer says, was shocked by his indictment but is ready to fight, quickly condemning the DA's move as political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. And today lashing out at the New York City judge expected to preside over his arraignment, claiming the judge, quote, hates me. His daughter, Ivanka Trump, offering a brief statement in support. I love my father and I love my country. Today, I am pained for both. Top Democrats are applauding the DA's move.
This is an affirmation of the fact that no one should be above the law, that we all held to account, that this is someone who has escaped accountability now for years and years.
Mr. Trump's been reaching out to his most vocal Republican allies in Congress, like Lindsey Graham.
This is turning the rule of law upside down to destroy a man, Donald J. Trump, who the left fears. Do not let them get away with this.
The former president's supporters are now looking to capitalize on the yet-to-be-announced charges, hawking T-shirts online to raise campaign money.
Peter Alexander joins us now from the White House. Peter, when we talk about voter enthusiasm, it can be good feelings driving people to the polls. Anger is also very motivating. Do Trump's allies see this as something that could benefit his presidential campaign?
Yeah, Ellison, I think for any other candidate, of course, an indictment would almost certainly be the end of the line. But Mr. Trump's allies, they do. They insist that this move by a Democratic prosecutor will only help him rally Republicans. You've just seen some of that among lawmakers. Already the front runner, Mr. Trump's allies say, this could cement his lead. Ellison.
We're back now with the story of 7 officers and a nurse now facing involuntary manslaughter charges after a man died in their custody back in 2020. The officers kneeled on the man after he initially refused a blood test during a traffic stop, but video shows him crying out, "I can't breathe." Maura Barrett has the story and a warning to our viewers. You may find the video disturbing.
Tonight, 7 highway patrol officers and a nurse now charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Okay.
The case in question, the 2020 death of a man who screams, "I can't breathe," while being restrained. LA County District Attorney George Gascon announcing the charges Wednesday.
This officer had a legal duty to Mr. Bronstein. He was in their custody. We believe that they failed their duty, and their failure was criminally negligent, causing his death.
A CHP sergeant, 6 officers, and a registered nurse all charged with 1 count apiece. Edward Bronstein had been pulled over, suspected of driving under the influence. At first, he refused a blood test. He was then held down by officers. The test was then forcibly administered.
I can't breathe.
Gascon describes the 18-minute video of the incident as difficult to watch, and that CPR didn't begin until 13 minutes after Bronstein's last scream.
If he's got a pulse and he's not breathing, he still needs rescue breaths. Get some air in him. A group of officers holds him down and press their knees on his legs and neck as he repeatedly promises them that he will comply. Just relax and stop resisting. Let me breathe. Let me breathe.
In an interview with KNBC, Gascon adding that he's disturbed officers aren't being trained to use different tactics.
As someone that was in policing for many years and who deeply cares about policing, it's disturbing to me that we don't bring our training of our law enforcement officers and the behavior and the situations to a different place.
An autopsy report found Bronstein had acute methamphetamine intoxication during restraint by law enforcement. A CHP spokesman releasing a statement after the charges were announced, saying the agency's top priority is protecting the safety and well-being of all Californians, and I am saddened that Mr. Bronstein died while in our custody and care. He added, any death in custody is a tragedy. Attorneys representing the CHP officers in the wrongful death civil suit did not respond to NBC's request for comment today. An attorney for Arby Bagalian, the nurse, called the manslaughter charge against his client, quote, outrageous, telling NBC News, I am not aware of anyone who has opined that the nurse's conduct in any way caused or contributed to this unfortunate death. Bronstein's father now relieved the officers are off the streets, but still mourning his son.
It's just something I can't bear with yet, even now.
I'm glad that we came to this point where they get prosecuted so they can hurt nobody else. Go through what my son went through.
Now, if convicted, the CHP officers could face a maximum sentence of nearly 5 years in prison, while the nurse could face 4 years. Allison?
Maura, thank you. Now we turn to a shocking video showing a teen getting punched and body slammed in a New York high school hallway. Her parent now planning to sue the school district for $2 million. Rahima Ellis has the story.
Tonight, disturbing cell phone video showing a vicious attack on a 9th grader in a hallway at Central Islip High School on Long Island. A 14-year-old girl is seen being tossed to the ground by another student, who then punches the victim in the head several times as she tries to escape. Teens even commenting on the lack of adult presence at the beginning of the video.
There's no teachers here, just go.
I was like sad and upset.
The victim's father, Ezra Hoyt, saw the video after it was posted on social media. Now his lawyer has filed a notice of claim against the school district and Board of Education, the first step towards suing for $2 million.
When I seen the video through social media, I was even more infuriated because I noticed that my daughter didn't have any help. You see in the video her like a little disoriented at the end and looking for help, then run around the corner.
Hoyt says the attack was unprovoked.
Emotionally, she's like just distraught.
Attorney Ken Mullins is representing the victim and her father.
She hasn't gone back to school. She's afraid to go back to school.
And she's not alone. A recent study from the CDC showed almost 1 in 10 high school students did not go to school at least once in the last 30 days because they felt unsafe, either at school or on their way. And it comes on the heels of a high-profile bullying incident in New Jersey, where another 14-year-old girl was beaten and ended up dying by suicide. Her family and community outraged.
They had numerous reports about Adriana being bullied, and they didn't do anything to step in.
In light of what's been happening all over the country, where there's been an epidemic of violence in schools, something has to be done. And my client's daughter was beaten badly in school in a hallway where there were no guards, there were no monitors. There was nobody that was supposed to be there that the school safety plan says should be there.
The school district telling NBC News it was advised by counsel to not comment on the pending litigation, but that it, quote, seeks to avoid the consequences of student altercations by proactive approaches.
The school district must act as a parent would act in a reasonable manner to make sure the student is safe within its home, within its building.
Suffolk County Police say the teen suffered minor injuries from the attack and confirmed that the 14-year-old alleged attacker was arrested, charged with assault, and was then released to her mother. But a father's paternal instinct's clear as he keeps worrying about his daughter.
I can't be there to protect her.
The lawyer telling us today they intend to bring the lawsuit as soon as legally possible, which he hopes will be in about 3 months. Back to you.
All right, when we come back, we'll have the latest on the deadly Black Hawk crash in Kentucky. The identities of the 9 soldiers killed just released. The names and faces of those lives lost. Next. Back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the investigation into a deadly crash involving 2 Black Hawk helicopters in Kentucky. The Army releasing the names and images of the 9 soldiers killed, including the 101st Airborne Deputy Commander. The victims ranging in age from 23 to 36. The choppers both crashing near Fort Campbell on Wednesday during a routine nighttime training mission. Investigators are now trying to piece together what happened. President Biden issuing a message to Russia today after an American journalist was arrested on espionage charges. The president saying, quote, let him go, when asked about Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. Russia's Federal Security Service has accused Gershkovich of trying to obtain classified information. The newspaper strongly denies those allegations. He is the first American journalist detained in Russia on accusations of spying since the Cold War. A major update tonight in the Dominion lawsuit case against Fox News. A judge in Delaware denying a summary motion by Fox News, alleging allowing the $1.6 billion defamation case to go to trial. Dominion Voting Systems alleges Fox damaged its reputation by promoting bogus claims that they altered votes during the 2020 presidential election. And dramatic video shows a skier racing to rescue a man trapped in the snow near Mount Baker in Washington state. Skier Francis Zuber is seen digging through feet of snow until he finally reaches a snowboarder who was buried upside down in a tree well. Zuber says he was skiing in the area when he noticed the snowboarder's physical snowboard sticking up out of the snow. Luckily, that snowboarder was not seriously injured. Coming up, around the world in 80 days in their 80s. Would you do it? The incredible story of two 81-year-old best friends who just traveled to 7 continents. Their amazing journey and inspiring message is up next. We are back now with an amazing story about travel, perseverance, and most of all, friendship. Two best friends setting off on an adventure around the world for 80 days. And get this, they're both 81 years old. They both shared their travels on social media and are reminding us that age is just a number. Meet Ellie Hamby and Sandy Hazlitt. 81 years young and traveling the world in about as many days.
I just mentioned to Ellie one day, wouldn't it be fun to go around the world in 80 days at age 80? And Ellie's eyes got big and she said, woohoo! And she started making plans. So we had it all planned, all tickets, and COVID shut us down last year. So our new theme is around the world in 80 days at 81 and still on the run.
Don't lift your head up.
I promise.
They've seen Egypt's pyramids from all angles.
Amazing.
And in Finland,
Oh, it's got a baby.
they relied on 4-legged friends to traverse the snow. In Japan, strangers helped them navigate Tokyo's complex subway system.
Just having a great time.
And in Antarctica, they followed the birds.
Vacations are tiring. This is not a vacation. This is an adventure, and each day just revs us up to have another adventure.
Sandy is a doctor, and Ellie is a photographer. They're both from West Texas. They've been friends for decades, sharing most of life's ups and downs.
Sandy and I both lost our husbands around 20 years ago. Hers a few years before I did mine.
They started to travel together back then, but this trip is next level, and they've shared it all on TikTok, gaining thousands of followers and millions of views along their journey.
Did y'all ever have a moment on this trip where you were like, okay, we've known each other for decades, but I can't stand you anymore? Did you ever want to tap out from this friendship?
No,
Not a
bit. No. But the only thing that I always joke about is Ellie has longer legs than I have, and I can't keep up with her.
7 continents, 18 countries, all in 80 days. Their final stop, the Grand Canyon.
Sandy and Ellie from the Grand Canyon.
But this isn't just a story about where Ellie and Sandy have been. It's also about the steps they took towards an unknown.
And this is what I always advise. Get up out of that easy chair. Step out of your comfort zone. Make some plans and live.
Don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to step out and do things. And we always say that age is only a number.
Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Ellison Barber in New York. Stay right there. More news now is on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.